Hello, my name is Stacy. Welcome to the Wild Yarrow Apothecaries podcast, where we focus mainly on herbalism, but we also talk about all things holistic health. So grab a cup of herbal tea and enjoy the show. Hello, and welcome to this podcast episode where we are going to be talking about what is a Materia Medica, how do we create a Materia Medica, and how do we use one? And so, yeah, I can't believe it's taken me this long to talk about this topic because this is something that is really beneficial for the herbal world. Before we really get into this episode, though, I do want to give a disclaimer that I am not a medical professional. This is all for educational purposes only. And just in case, I don't know if we'll be really talking about herbs, but just in case I do talk about herbs, I do want you to be really careful before you consume any herbs that you may be interested in. Do some research to make sure that they don't conflict with any medications that you're taking, any illnesses that you may have. And yeah. So yeah, we're gonna be talking all about Medica, which is all about um, herbs. But I don't know if we're going to be talking about any specific herb. So we will see. I outline my podcast episodes, but I never do a script. So I do everything pretty much on the top of my head. The outline, though, is to kind of keep me on track so I don't go off track and be like, oh, where do I want to be? And then also, I don't want to forget anything. So my outline helps me to try to not to forget stuff. So yeah, all right. What is a materia medica? So, a Materia Medica is pretty much an herbal journal. So, this is where you write down all the information down about an herb. That you can think of that you would want to know. And yeah, and there's different ways that we could do Materia Medica. So, do you want to do it like on paper? Like, do you want to write everything down? Do you want to get really artistic? Do you want to draw out the plants that you are researching? Or would you rather do everything like on your computer? Do use pictures. You could use pictures on either your computer or um, on paper, so you could take pictures into like your paper journal. It's just there's so many different ways, and you could totally make it your own. So yeah, and then something that I've gotten a lot is okay, so let's say I start a Materia Medica. How do I even know what herb I should start off with? And so there's several ways that you could go about picking which herb that you want to do. I would use the one that really calls out to you. So, one way is to pick an illness that you may have, an illness or a condition. For example, when I first got into the herbal world, I had anxiety. So, what I would probably do if I were brand new starting a Materia Medica is I might go with something like, okay, so I had anxiety. Let's pick an herb that can help anxiety. So maybe like chamomile or lemon balm, something along that line. Or maybe another way you can go about is what grows in your community. Um, find what grows like in your backyard, not literally in your backyard, but what grows in your backyard and try to learn plants that way. And then another really easy way uh, is to look in your spice rack. What do you have in your spice rack? because a lot of the spices have medicinal uses to them. So maybe you're like, oh, I have sage. Let's learn all about sage, or maybe it's ginger or garlic, and you could really dive in deep. One of the things, actually, it's not one of the things. What I actually did do, um, when I started writing my very first Materia Medicas is I lucked out. I found a nursery in my area. This was actually in Southern California. I now live in Northern California, but when I was in Southern California, I found this nursery that sold like herb plants. And so I collected a yarrow and a plantain there. And then I started doing a Materia Medica on the plants. Now, this isn't a requirement, but this I think would make it so much easier is if you could get the actual plant, um, like actually sit with the plant, actually have the plant with you while you write the Materia Medica. It's much easier to build a relationship with a plant this way, but I have done plenty of Materia Medicas without the plant in front of me. I just think it's a little bit better though with the plant. Now, one thing I do want to, shameless plug here. Shameless plug is I have a membership called Herb of the Month. And every month we learn about one herb in great detail. And I share a Materia Medica monthly with everybody that's in our membership. So every month I am sharing, how to, or like an herbal journal. So I am really getting into details about the plants. We're going to be talking more about this in a few. But if you're a member listening to this, the PDF files that I share with you, these are Materia Medicas. So if you're, I think it's fun for everybody to create their own because you can really make it your own. But if you're like, I just don't have time to make your own, or I don't have time to make my own, guess what? I make it for you. So I create Materia Medicas every month for my members. Even if you are a member, I still kind of recommend to create your own Materia Medica. And like I said, make it your own, but you could use my Materia Medica as a resource. So there's so many different ways to do this. So that's how, I would create it. And so, yeah. All right. But now you might be thinking, okay, what kind of information should I put in my Materia Medica? So this is the information that I put in mine. And um, so yeah, let's talk about this. And we're going to talk about why all of this information is so important. So the first thing is name. What's the name of the plant? And most of the time we're using a common name. Is it yarrow? Is it plantain? Is it ginger? Um, is it chamomile? What plant are we using? So I just put the name, and then I like to do the Latin name. Now, Latin names are so important to know for a plant and an herb because um, each plant can have multiple common names. For example, let's talk about holy basil. So holy basil, the names can get really confusing for holy basil because holy basil has two very popular common names. Half of the herbalists that I know call holy basil, just like I do. So they're like holy basil. And then the other half of the herbalists I know, they call it Tulsi. Same plant, two different names. So holy basil, Tulsi, same plant. But then what makes things even a little bit more confusing is people are like, is basil and holy basil the same plant? No. So the basil that we have in our kitchen, the common basil that we make pesto sauce with, it is different than holy basil. Now they're very closely related, but they are different plants. But this is where Latin names become really important to know because I've had a lot of people come up to me and they're like, is this plant and this plant, is they the same? Are they the same? And I was like, okay, well, let's look it up. Let's see if they have the same Latin name. The Latin name is what's going to tell us everything because no plants share a Latin name, but plants can also share common names like plantain. So one of my favorite plants is plantain, but it shares a name with a fruit. There is a fruit that looks like a banana, and when I say plantain, 99.9% of the time, I'm not talking about the fruit that looks like a banana. I'm talking about a plant that grows in most people's backyards that people think are pesky weeds and I see as medicine. So, um, this is another way to really, why the Latin name is so important is because it can tell us everything about a plant. So, um, is this plant is and this plant are they the same plant? Well, let's look up the Latin name and see if it's the same plant or uh these two plants have the same name, but let's look up their Latin names so we can kind of tell the difference. And one of the things that really comes in handy about knowing about Latin names, and I do want to say you don't have to memorize every Latin name. I don't have them memorized. And most of the time I cannot pronounce them because most of the time Latin names, it's a foreign language. It's Latin, it's a foreign language. And so a lot of times I butcher the Latin names when I talk about them, especially licorice root. I have no idea how to say licorice root's Latin name. There's not enough vowels for my mind to be able to comprehend how to uh, pronounce a licorice root's Latin name. Someday I'll learn it. But anyways, plantain. Let's go back to plantain. Plantain's Latin name is Plantago. That's a genus name. There's two very popular species, so it could be Plantago major or Plantago lanceolata. But when I do a search for plantain, and I want the herb, I actually will go in the search engine and like in TikTok, Instagram, Google, wherever, and I will type in Plantago and not plantain because chances are if I type in plantain, I'm going to get information about the fruit and not about the herb, if that makes sense. And so, knowing the Latin name is super important. And then what I like to do, because like I said, Latin names are super hard to pronounce. In my Materia Medica, I don't think a lot of people do this, but I like to do this. I have a Latin name pronunciation, and so I try to uh, write or type it out so you can figure out how to pronounce the Latin or the Latin name. And then it's a good idea to know about family. What family does this plant belong to? And I do have a really good book. I should have brought this with me. Um, Give me just a second. Oh, Botany in a Day. So, Botany in a Day by Thomas J. Um, Elpel. This is, and I want to write this down. I'm going to type this down so I can put it in the show notes. So, um, oh, wrong note. Give me just a moment. I don't want to forget to put this in the show notes. So I'm going to put this in the show notes and you guys can look it up. But this is where I get all my family information. Body in a day, show notes. So this is where I get all the information about family that I am sharing. Um, Okay, so I'll have that in the show notes, so if you can go check that out. So, um, I should have had that book with me. But yeah, Botany in a Day. This is a fantastic book that will give you all the information about family. And so, like I said, it's really beneficial to know what family your plant is in. And some plants, not every plant, but some plants are also in like sub families and tribe families. And so, yeah. And then some families are hard to pronounce as well. A lot of them are nicknamed. For example, Aster. So they're we say, hey, this plant is in the aster family, but it has a much longer name. I might butcher this just a tiny bit, but I think it's something like Asteraceae family. So Asteraceae. And so I will try to put down how do you pronounce Asteraceae. And so, yeah. And then after that, I will try to uh, write or type down all about the family, like type down, the characteristics of plants in the aster family or the mint family, um, you know, what um, what their characteristics are. I always will say, okay, genus, so for plantain, the genus is Plantago, and then the species is either going to be Major or Lanceolata. For yarrow, the genus is going to be Achillea. And then the species is going to be Mellifolium, or maybe nettle, the genus is going to be Urtica, and then the species is going to be Dioica. So this can really help us, figure out the genus and the species. And then what I like to do is um, I go from there and I figure out what are their common names. So each plant has multiple common names. And I've noticed, that some people in different regions in the United States may call a plant something a little bit different. Let's take for cleavers, for example. There's a herb that most people call cleavers. And in the herbal world, so for people who are herbalists today, I think we mostly call it cleavers, but there are other people in other regions of the United States that can call it sticky willy. They call it sticky willy. And then also some people will call it bed straw. So it's really important, to know that plants can have multiple names, and so common names. Was kind of sad one day. I was flipping through TikTok, and um, this lady was so excited. She got these beautiful yellow flowers that were blooming, and she kept calling them, "Oh, look, the buttercups, the buttercups! My buttercups, they bloomed." And she was so excited about these plants that she called buttercups. But most people call what she was calling buttercups, most people call them daffodils. And She got some of the most nasty comments in her video saying those are not buttercups, those are daffodils, and they were hateful and mean. And it's like, no, um, it's a different common name for daffodils. Buttercup is another, so a lot of people call it daffodils, but some people call it buttercups, and that's okay. It's okay for people to call these plants different names. Ooh, another one that gets really confusing, and I will never ever tell anybody that they're wrong, even though I feel like it causes so much confusion is okay, so we have a plant called calendula. So calendula. And then there's another plant called marigold. And they look very, very similar. They're both uh, fairly big, well, medium to big, orange flowers. And a lot of people will get calendula and marigold confused because of how similar that they look. But not only that, but there's a lot of people out there that will call calendula pot marigold. So they'll call calendula pot marigold, and that's what they call it. And so if you ever hear someone say, "Hey, pot marigold," it's not marigold; it's actually calendula. And so, again, this is where Latin names, become really beneficial. Uh, so, um, we it's a good idea for herbalists to really get to know common names. So when people are um, calling them by a different name, you have a good idea what they're talking about. Also, just let me give you a couple more examples. Um, I I found this plant, discovered this plant in my area about 4 or 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. Um, and I looked it up and everybody kept calling it gumweed. So gumweed this, gumweed that. And so I started calling it gumweed. And then I started realizing that a lot of like more seasoned herbalists were calling it by its genus name, which is Grandilia. And so now I mainly call it Grandilia now because it just kind of rubbed off on me. But Grandilia or gumweed, two common names. Another one that, oh, game changer for anyone who's having a lot of hormone health is Vitex. I call it Vitex, and Vitex is also the genus name of this plant. But some people will call it chase berry or chase tree. And so I know I keep getting examples, but I just want you guys to know that different common names, it's really beneficial to know about the common names. All right. So let's go to the next one. Okay, so if you're going to make your Materia Medica, I highly recommend that you do it slightly different than I do. So, this next one is visual. What does it look like? So, what I do, because I'm making a Materia Medica for other people and not just me, I try to make it more sciencey, more factual, more more, understanding for everybody. But if you make your own Materia Medica, what I highly recommend is that And you want to go into great detail when you're talking about visual, but I would make it into your own words. What does this plant remind you of? And we want to go into great detail on visual. What does the plant look like overall? About how big? Is it a big plant? Is it a small plant? And then I usually will try to start with a stem. What does the stem look like? Is it round or is it from the mint family and is it square? Is it completely green or maybe does it have different color spots on it? Is it smooth or is it ribbed? Is it hairy or is it smooth? Um, is it, what color shade of green is it? Like, is it a light green or is it a really dark green? So really, get into detail. Um, is the stem, is that hollow or is it solid? Is it um, is it firm or is it more soft? So really you go into great detail on the stem. Then we move on to the leaves. What color are the leaves? Does the leaves have any uh, distinct markings on it like milk thistle, or is it just solid green? Is it what shade of green is it? Is it a dark green? Is it a light green? Is it same color on bottom and top, or is it slightly different? Is it maybe like mugwort to where it's like green on the top and on the bottom it's more silvery color? Or is it what's the shape of it? Is it oval? Is it toothed? Is it really go into details? And then the flowers. Are the flowers big? Are they tiny? Do they have a disc in the middle? Are they shaped as a tube? Um, the petals, about how many petals do they have on them. So it's really important to go into great detail to really get to know the plant. And excuse me. I just got over a cold. I like am 99.9% over my cold, but I still have a teeny cough. Um, so really go into as much detail about the plant that you can. If you want to, you can even go talk about the roots of the plants, the fruit, the seeds of the plant. But yeah, go into as much detail as you can about, what the plant looks like. Um, if I was making the Materia Medica just for me, I would do the visual part a little bit different and make it more my own, if that makes sense. All right, the next thing that I like to write about is touch. What does it feel like? Most herbs, this is not going to be a big deal about how it feels, but there are some plants that it does matter for, like, let's say, example, for cleavers. Cleavers, when you touch the plant, it feels like Velcro. It will stick to you, but it will not leave a residue on you. It's more gonna stick like as it is like Velcro. To whereas Grandilia or gumweed, it is really sticky to where it will leave residue on your hands, and it's like all like sappy and kind of grody, even though it's beautiful. It's a very beautiful plant, but it will definitely get you sticky. Um, and then what else? Mullein. So mullein is very fuzzy. So we talk about, how fuzzy it is. So there are some plants that have some characteristics about how they feel. Then I like to talk about smell. What does it smell like? And so I go into details about, how this plant smells. Taste. Um, Taste I do a little bit differently than you'd probably think because some people would probably try to describe exactly what it tastes like. But I like to go more into is it pungent? Is it salty? Is it sour? Is it sweet? Is it what's the one I'm missing? Um, Salty, sweet, pungent, bitter. Is it bitter? So I will talk about all of that. And then each of these tastes have a different characteristics. And so I will talk about, okay, what is the characteristics for a bitter herb? What is the characteristics for a sweet herb? What's the characteristic for a sour herb? And so I will go into, all of those characteristics. So, and then I always accidentally put this one in out of order. This next one should be closer to the visual. This next one should be more like right under. And I feel like I keep fixing it and somehow it keeps getting moved. I don't know how this happens, but it's lookalikes. So what are the lookalikes to this plant? For example, when I wrote about yarrow, talked about how it looked like uh, poisonous hemlock um, and Queen Anne's lace. So it's really important to, what the lookalikes are, and then maybe do your research to figure out how you could tell the difference between like yarrow and hemlock, and tell the difference between yarrow and Queen Anne's lace, because we don't want you guys to be poisoning yourself with herbs like poisonous hemlock, and so it's really beneficial um, to know its lookalikes. So yeah. Then I like to talk about environment, and when I do environment, I put in here like where it's native to where's this plant? Where does it grow natively? And then where did it kind of move to? Where are they? And are they more like a garden or more of like a wild plant? Parts used. So each plant we use a different, part of a plant. Do we use the leaves? Do we use the flowers? Do we use the roots? So what parts of the plants do we use? How to harvest plants. So how do we harvest? How is it reproduced? So I'll be like, how do like, is it reproduced by seeds, by propagation? Does it spread? How are these plants, reproduced? How growth habit, like how tall does it get? Habitat, like where does it most commonly grow? Does it like to grow in like fields? Does it like to grow in deserts or maybe marshy lands? Does it grow in disturbed soil, or is it more picky and likes like better soil? So where do these plants like to grow? What type of sun? Does it like full sun, partial sun? What type of water? Does it like a lot of water, or is it more drought resistant? What type of soil does it like? What zones does it grow in? Um, and garden, like how to garden it, like how to plant. Can it grow in a container, or does it need a more bigger area? Um, how to sow it, how long does it take to germinate, all of that information. You don't have to put this next part, but I do think that, especially if you're a newbie, a new herbalist, this is something that you do not have to put in there. But if you become a little bit more seasoned, Herbalists, I do recommend that you do start paying attention to this. And this is active constituents. So, active constituents is the chemistry of the plant, like volatile oils and different types of volatile oils, or alkaloids. Um, all these kind of things, all the chemistry. And then not only that, but how to extract said chemistry from the plant, how to extract each ingredient. Does it do better being extracted with alcohol or hot water or cold water or alcohol, vinegar? What are the ways that we can extract said active constituents? And I have all of this information in the Materia Medica, the PDF files that I offer for my members. So, yeah. All right. The next thing that I like to put in there is the therapeutic properties. Like, is this plant is it an antibacterial, or does it have antibacterial properties, or maybe antiviral properties? Is it a diuretic, a demulcent? What therapeutics? And I nerd out on the therapeutic properties. I love medicinal uses, but I feel like the therapeutic properties can tell me so much about a plant. Therapeutic properties, like what are they? And so yeah, and then energetics. Um, I have an episode. All about energetics. There's a little bit to this, and I don't know if I want to go into great details about energetics, but let me see if I can find the date um, about energetics. You just heard that ringing. I do apologize about that. I tried to have my ringers turned off, but I've been really bad about turning the ringers off lately. So I just turned the ringer off. Hold on. Let's see. Um, energetics. So April 18th of 2025, I did a episode all about energetics. So I would go check out that episode if you're interested in knowing what energetics are. Just a quick preview of what energetics are, because this is a topic that I can make a whole episode on, and I did. But each herb has different energetics, like is it warming, is it cooling, is it drying, is it moistening, is it relaxing or is it constricting, is it relaxing or is it stimulating? And so this is a great way to really customize a herb and their to the person and their symptoms. So like I said, April 18th, 2025, you can go check that out. All right, so organ affinities is the next thing that I would do. And this one can get kind of tricky because, especially with herbs like nettle or burdock root or even yarrow, with the really versatile herbs, this can get kind of tricky. But most herbs have like organ affinity. And what I mean by this is pretty much every herb out there has multiple um, things that they're good at, multiple parts of the body that they can support. But a lot of herbs have a specialty. So, for example, as I'm talking about this, valerian is our herb of the month. So, its organ affinity is hands down the nervous system. Mullein, hands down, the organ affinity is going to be the respiratory system. The organ affinity is like, what is its specialty? What is it really good at? Um, Sage was another really hard one for me to really pick a organ affinity for because sage is a very versatile herb and it's good at many things and it really doesn't have a specialty. I guess you could kind of say the immune system, but it's also really good for the digestive system. But it's also really good for the nervous system. So it's like, ah. But we do the best we can and we try to, pick out what is its specialty that it's really good at. And then medicinal uses, I like to write down everything that the herb is really beneficial for, what is it good for, and I will type or write down all of that. Um, for like the nervous system, the cardiovascular system, the immune system, what medicinal uses does it have? And I try to go into as much detail as I can. Dosages, what are the dosages? Each plant has dosages, and this gets a little tricky too because everybody is different, bio individuality. So the dosages are mostly a guide, and they are um, they're mostly a guide. Um, And then you just kind of have to experiment. Like, do you need less? Do you need more? Because everybody is so different. Precautions. So then this is the next thing that I like to focus on is precautions. Um, and so like for example, St. John's wort. St. John's wort conflicts with a lot of medications. So I try to put that on there, but it's really difficult. I will tell you this, it's for some reason, it's easier for you to say, okay, what herbs conflict with this specific medication? Than it is to say, like, it's really, really difficult to say what medications conflict with a specific herb. I do not know why it's that way, but it's really difficult to research medications against herbs than vice versa. So if you're on medications, I would definitely check, what herbs can conflict with that medication. But I do like when I did St. John's wort, I said, hey, definitely check your medications because this conflicts with a lot of medications. Also, illnesses, what herbs conflict with certain illnesses. So I try to put that, is this herb safe to take with pregnancy or breastfeeding? And so, oh, and some herbs, and this kind of plays into dosages, but some herbs do better in little tiny amounts. Like a little bit goes a long way. For example, valerian. We're learning all about valerian right now. So, um, valerian, a little bit goes a long way for most people, but there are some people that can take it in larger amounts. So I put that in the precautions. Um, Oh, another thing about valerian that I put in the precautions as well is that um, most people, valerian makes them calm and sleepy, to where other people, it stimulates them. It actually will stimulate. Um, Also, like passion flower and skullcap in there, I put, hey, these herbs may make you sleepy, so keep that in mind. So you're not like taking it and then falling asleep when it's a dangerous time to fall asleep. So I do that. Another thing that I will put in mine, and I don't think a lot of herbalists will put this in theirs, but I put is the herb safe for children. I will put that in there and my thoughts on, should children take these herbs or not? Is it safe for pets? And so I'll put, is this safe for, dogs, cats, livestock, that kind of stuff. And then this next part you do not have to put in there, but I love this stuff is folklore. So I put folklore in mine. So where do you find the information? Where do I find the information on all of this? Hands down, books. I love books. I have lots and lots of books, and so I am always putting or using books for this. I highly, highly recommend that you do not use Google. Do not use Google. Um, Google is probably the worst place that you can get herbal information from. I swear, Google is all about fear mongering. And I, that drives me nuts. It drives me nuts when people, or when Google tries to fear monger and kind of, um, try to scare people from using um, herbs. And so, um, books, hands down, is what I use. So, but yeah, um, that's how I Materia Medica. And like I said, if you're a member in our Herb of the Month membership, I provide these. Already Materia Medicas for you guys. And why do this? Well, one, it helps you learn. It helps you to build a relationship with the plant, really learn about a certain plant into great detail. But the other day in one of my lives, so I do TikTok lives, and I had someone say, "Oh my gosh," they're like, my biggest problem with herbalism is I can't remember everything. I can't remember, all the information about herbs. And it's like, no one can. No one can remember all the information about herbs. And so, creating a Materia Medica is like having your own personal herbal library that you created. And so you can reference back. So you're like, oh man, I can't remember, so let me go look. And you can go look back and look at these herbs and remember the information about them. And so I always reference back to my PDF files and my Materia Medica. Um, so yeah, I hope that this episode really helped you. I hope that you loved this episode and that maybe you would want to create your own Materia Medica. Maybe you want to come join our Herb of the Month where I provide you guys with Materia Medicas. So yeah, all right. So I'm gonna hop off this recording. I'm gonna hop off this episode and I'm going to go record the bonus podcast episode where I'm going to be talking about the spirits of plants and herbs. So we're going to get into detail about the spirits and all of that. So I'm really excited about that episode and my take on the spiritual part of plants and herbs and all of that. We're getting a little woo-woo, which will be fun. So I love woo-woo stuff. So, all right, guys, let me know if you have any questions on any of what we talked about. Let me know if you have any concerns, and I will talk to you guys. Well, I will do another podcast episode next Friday. And so, yeah. All right, guys. Bye. I hope you loved this episode. If you did, please make sure to follow Wild Yarrow Apothecaries Podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave me a review. Do you want to hear more about this episode? Join our Herb of the Month membership where I add a bonus part of this episode. In this membership, we also have a lot of PDF files, a lot of videos, and every 3 months that you are a member, I send you 3 herbs, and there's so many more benefits. Come check it out out, come nerd out with us. And thank you for listening to the Wild Yarrow Apothecaries podcast, and have a great day.